So now that we are all set, it is time to welcome our first speaker of the day. She doesn't need also presentation because she is one of the leaders of this movement of collaboration among freelancers. So please welcome Tabea Grzeszyk. She is the CEO of Hostwriter and Unbiased the News, a new remote cross-border newsroom dedicated to showcase underrepresented stories that break through geographical and structural barriers. We believe, as Linda said at the beginning, that creating new connections, joining forces, working together is the first step to address the freelance community's challenges. And to tell us more about why the future of freelance journalism is collaborative, now we have with us Tabea. Tabea, welcome.
Anna, thanks so much. It's such a big honor to be here. Thanks so much that I can share a couple of words about this new initiative. And I really felt when you were talking about the travel restrictions and kind of seeing Hyderabad, Italy, Spain, or for you, Colombia, where everybody wants to travel and that we're kind of just waiting until the borders open again. I think that's the perfect spirit for a couple of thoughts I'd love to share here in this keynote. I do have a presentation. I think I shared my screen. If we want to jump right into it, then I'm happy to show a few slides. Let me check. Yes, I think now when I make it full screen, I think it should look better. So yeah, I'm very happy to provide a couple of thoughts on the future of freelance journalism is collaborative. To be perfectly honest, I would a little bit like to challenge that because I think journalism has always been collaborative. But we just know some names like Walter Cronkite, for example, the CBS anchorman. And we all probably remember or have learned in journalism school about this man who kind of brought the truth about the Vietnam War into American newsrooms and on the screens of like all over the world. But when we look at it a bit more closely, there has been collaboration. Like there's a person who's operating the camera. But most importantly, I would think, usually there's a lot of local journalists involved providing their expertise, their contacts, their facilitation, a lot of times their translation. So we remember Walter Cronkite, but there's been a lot of invisible collaboration. And guess what? A lot of invisible collaboration by freelance journalists. Now, if we fast forward a little bit, I just love this picture. This is like 2 years, like pre-pandemic, obviously. This is a picture from the Global Investigative Journalism Conference in 2019 in Hamburg. And I love it not only, but of course also because there's the wonderful Maria Ressa here in the picture, the incredible founder of Rappler, who spoke in this assembly yesterday. And I would say, yeah, like one of the most inspiring journalists of our time, for sure. When we compare these two images, I think what's really catching and grabbing the attention and what makes it a lot more clear is journalism today is so much more diverse. It's more female. It's more now north-south. There's like journalists in the Philippines, like Maria Ressa, and like a lot of other people who are working not as fixers and not as so-called stringers for foreign correspondents, but who are reporting from the ground, sharing their perspective. And when we cover, or like who's we, like any journalist traveling to another country reporting, we do a good job when we get in touch with the local journalists because there's a good chance that they've covered already in local media what we are now investigating for our own outlets. If we again fast forward a little bit, this is us. I think a bit unhappy, like it's stuck behind the screen, the travel restrictions, borders are closed, etc. So at this moment, at this, I don't know, this disruptive moment in time of journalism, where we are almost a little bit in a forced situation, a forced collaboration, I would love to take this moment and take this opportunity here, having the chance to speak in front of this journalism assembly, to actually propose a couple of thoughts that I think if we have to take a step back and like if collaboration has kind of become the new normal in times of closed borders, let's make it different. Let's change it. Let's improve it. Let's make it more inclusive, or how we like to call it at my organization, let's unbias the news. So what do we mean by that? And how could this help us as freelancers to move forward? Let me share a freelance collaboration manifesto. That's just a couple of thoughts I'd love to propose here in this context. Number one, no parachute journalism. Like, I've been working as a freelance journalist myself for more than 10 years. And like, honestly, like we all have to travel, obviously. So in my case also, like, I pitched stories to my editors, then I traveled to countries, sometimes staying between like 5 to 10 days, researching and then reporting back to my audience. I think in 2021, let's go deeper. Let's scratch beyond the surface. We have to do better. And I think we can do better with local collaboration as a default. Not with stringers, not with fixers, with local journalists working as equals, where we can really like exchange our thoughts, what is interesting for our different audiences. Let's make this more in-depth. A third point, judge colleagues by their work, not their identity. This is just something I found super interesting that we've observed at my organization, Hostwriter. Like, we've been facilitating collaboration for like 7 years now. And repeatedly, we noticed that there seemed to be some sort of collaboration bias. Like this sense that people who are based in the same country as me, or who have a similar background, that I'm more likely to trust them. I think we should go beyond that. There's terrible journalists in Germany, and there's incredible journalists in Gambia. Let's really judge people by their work. Let's do our due diligence, but let's go beyond this kind of bias towards people based in that country are such and such. Due diligence, fact checking, we can do that. Fourth point is kind of connected to that a little bit. This is also something that we've experienced to be quite a barrier in collaboration, that lived experience is sometimes considered to be a hurdle to objectivity. So for example, when you're a woman covering Me Too and you know actually what you're talking about, or if you're a POC journalist covering Black Lives Matter, or many other examples, there's sometimes this kind of resistance as if, oh, you're like too close, you're too attached, you're too something, you're not objective enough. And again, like, I would love to invite us all, like, we do our fact checking, we do fact-based reporting, but lived experience, I would love to consider this much more as an expertise. Like, this is an access to the communities that we cover. And this is also a way of maybe regaining the trust of our audience that we so dearly missed and lost in the past couple of years. Finally, number 5, all of this kind of taken together, like to collaborate to unbias the news. And I want to go back to this picture from the global conference that I love so much. I think the freelance community, like, we bring in the diversity of voices and perspectives that are so often missing in legacy newsrooms. So like, this is exactly, I think, and this is what also makes me so optimistic, like, despite all the challenges, despite all like the shrinking civic spaces and the media, press media freedom under attack, I think there's so much power, these different perspectives that we can bring to the table as freelancers. I think we can just rock journalism. We can change journalism. And if we could do this and join forces, I think the future of freelance journalism is collaborative. But what it really means is that the future of journalism is collaborative. It is more inclusive. And that's just the couple of thoughts I wanted to share at this point. And I'm happy to take your questions and notes and everything. Challenge me, challenge us. Let's do something better.
Hi, Tabea, how are you? Thank you so much for this presentation. So far, there are no questions in the chat, but I have one for you. What was your the collaboration you enjoy professionally and personally the most?
Collaboration I enjoyed the most. Well, I can think of one specific one that kind of was also a starting point that like, as a co-founder, I think everybody, also Elisa, who was speaking afterwards, I can imagine an experience that we share is that a lot of times, like, we become involved, we set up all these programs, and sometimes we don't have so much time to report ourselves. So I remember this dear collaboration where I was actually able to collaborate as a reporter. And that was, in my case, I'm taking one that's a little bit more back. This was in, like, all 2015. There was like a big, there was a big discussion around, like, there was a big migration movement in Germany. There was this big discussion, let's be welcoming to refugees, which was a bit of a new thing because Germany has like a mixed history in that respect. So 2015, 2016, a lot of especially Syrian people went towards Germany. And because I used to have a Middle East fellowship in Beirut, in Lebanon, I'm quite connected there. And I was in touch with a band that I loved a lot. They're called Rebes Daules, so also shout out to them. So one day in 2016, all of a sudden, I saw on Facebook that they posted a picture of the band in a dinghy. They were fleeing, like all the other ones, they were fleeing over the Mediterranean, and they just landed in Greece. And it was just a very rough, I don't know, I had tears, like what's happening, like what's happening with them. And I was working, like I was busy with editorial work, etc. So with the network, the Hostwriter network, I was able to just send a colleague, a Greek colleague, to welcome them and see how they are doing, and also interview them. And as it turned out, they're a really fun band. They were really challenging this idea of, oh, we are refugees and now we are landing on the Greek island and we are asking, please help us. No, they had their CD and they were handing it out to the tourists on Lesbos Islands and saying, okay, this is our new release. Do you want to listen to our music? So, and all the way, and in the end, now they're living in Berlin. So all on the way, on their routes, they were giving concerts in like shelters and refugee centers. And so they were really like rejecting this idea. No, we are not asking for help. We are not asking to do this. We are on a tour. And through collaboration, I was able to send colleagues to every step of their travel and to every concert that they gave. And I made a big series for the German National Radio. This is just an example that I felt that's very dear to me, to my heart, because it also challenged this narrative of, oh my God, the poor refugees. They're human beings and they are kick-ass. So Rebes Daules, check them out.
Yeah. Well, we have questions now in the chat. Let's start with Michelle Ferguson. Michelle asks, how do you usually approach another freelance for a collaboration? Are they typically open to this? And any tips for doing this for the first time? I think that's the first time is always like how we can approach other ones, right? So.
Exactly. Well, my tip would be, it's no problem when it's the first time. Like a lot of times people tend to be very open, but we have to be clear. Like, let's be very transparent what this is. In my presentation, I briefly referred to this concept of, like, in the old days, there was this idea of working with stringers or fixers. So if we are looking for someone and you just want them to hook you up with some protagonists, or you want to know, want to just have some general information, then this is not a collaboration. Then just pay someone as a fixer. That's fine. But if you want to do a collaboration, I think like the biggest starting point, the biggest question is really, what is a win-win? Like, what can also, not only what do I want to get out of this collaboration, what can I provide? Like, what's interesting for the other person? And this is sometimes really interesting, and it does not only have to be monetary. I can already like sense this question of, oh God, but we're broke, and what do we do? Collaboration, and then we have to share the money, etc. Money is a big issue. Yes, luckily there's grants, like Angela, you were like showing, and like at the moment there's this big cross-border grant that one can apply for. But money is an issue, but sometimes it can also be that for another colleague, it's great to have a byline in a European media, for example, or the byline in a media where you publish at. Or sometimes like having a reference, providing contacts, having some sort of mentoring. Someone is a broadcast journalist, the other one is into television or print. Let's find a way. I think the most important thing is transparency, like not trying to get as much as you want without giving anything back. And the second advice is kind of, I have three advices. So my second one would be to really have this open mind and like to be prepared that people have a different view. Be prepared that people view the research that you are trying to do maybe differently. Maybe they have a different story. Their context, how it's discussed locally, is very different from what you pitch to your editor. And that you embrace this as something interesting to learn, not like we disagree, but more like, okay, what is that? I wasn't aware of this. Maybe this is interesting for my story as well. And the third one, and I just really want to shout out and reference Brigitte Alfter, who is kind of the pioneering woman in this field and who also published books about it. There's like a step-by-step methodology book. check this out. This is a great start. And I would start with a baby step. Like, let's not start with the Panama Papers. Let's start with a small collaboration and then take it from there. Brigitte, she usually explains that it's not a linear process. It's not like I have a story, I research, I publish. It's an iterative process. Like, I have a story idea, I collaborate, I publish, and I network again. And then there goes the next round, and there goes the next round. So when you're up for collaboration, you are up to something more long-term. So like, choose big topics, choose the overarching topics that you can build your network and report on it for quite a while. And with mutual benefit, that's really super important.
Thank you. Thank you for the 3 tips. We have more questions coming. Let's see this one from Santiago Perez. Hi, Tabea. Thanks for your lecture. How's the relationship with the power? Do they try to hinder the work?
Okay. Thanks so much for this question. I think this is a big question that I cannot I might not have the perfect one answer. Like, who's the power? And the power, I don't know. I'm the Michel Foucault cultural studies structuralism kind of understanding of power that would kind of be maybe too long to go into detail here. I think power is manifold. If we talk about political power, my organization is based in Berlin, Germany. So I think, like, in terms of press freedom protection, we are okay. So that helps. So far that we haven't faced any lawsuits like Maria Ressa in the Philippines, for example, with Rappler, where it's like an ongoing thing. But maybe also Hostwriter has been just this collaboration network, a platform, not a content creator. So far we haven't run into major problems with political powers. But now that we just launched this newsroom, Unbiased News, where we try to live by the principles that I kind of pitched in this manifesto, and that we will be producing a lot of content, and I hope that we do challenge power in this. So let's see, maybe we can continue the conversation. Maybe, like, let's cross fingers, but maybe we'll run into more challenges in this in the future.
You talked before about money, and here comes a question about financial issues. Alma Lopez. Alma asks, when there is collaboration and more people involved in a project, how to deal with outlays and payments, taking into account the bad conditions regarding payments?
Alma, thanks so much for this question. And again, like, I love you're transparent, you're putting it on the table. You see, okay, this is something we need to address. I think there's no one-size-fits-all answer to this question. I think the most important part is to put it on the table, to discuss it, and then to figure out. In some countries, freelance journalism basically means unpaid journalism. In other countries, is a bit better, but I think that we all know the situation that, like, surviving as a freelancer is tough. Surviving as a freelancer when you want to do like forum reporting sometimes is almost like a hobby, like you have to subsidize yourself. So I think the most important part is to really be transparent, think, okay, where can we publish? Like, in some cases, like, I know some collaborations where people said, okay, we share all our insights, and then every person publishes individually at their outlet and receives the money at their outlets. When there's a lot of inequality, another approach could be, okay, let's see where we can sell it, and then how do we share this among the team? Or, as I mentioned before, sometimes it's like, there's also non-monetary benefits that can be interesting, like, helping someone to get a research grant, or like joining forces, getting a research grant, and then some people in the team, benefit from this more than others. This is a challenging conversation to have, because again, it brings in power imbalances. But I think we have to be realistic. Like, we live in a very unequal world. We have different access to money, and we're in a different position in terms of legal backup. We have to put this on the table and find open up the conversation and find a way that it works for everybody. Maybe, like, gut feeling, I would always try to get a grant, that there's more money on the table, which helps. But I think it goes beyond. You can also find another way of sharing like funds and sharing resources.
We have here a question from Pauline Tillman. Hello, Pauline. Nice to see you here as well. Pauline asks, hi, Tabea. Great to see you here. Do you have the impression that collaborative journalism is growing in Germany and Europe as a whole? Do you have concrete examples for that besides the Panama Papers?
Hi, Paulina. Also really nice seeing you here. Paulina is an amazing founder, also Deine Korrespondentin. So again, Paulina, you're the best example of course, it's like maybe that's my bias, how I perceive things, but I think it is a growing field. Of course, we have to check. There's also like more funding available. So like when there's cross-border funding available, then of course the field will also grow. So, I think it's kind of hen and egg, what is more present, what's less. There's a lot of, like investigation, like the far right, or like there's the follow the money teams. I think that you can really see that there's more and more like kind of mushrooms of collectives popping up, and small collectives and small outlets starting out. I think I would like to reverse the question. I think I'm not like I cannot give a percentage of like how much that's grown, but I can definitely share my thought that we need this kind of, like, we live in a networked society. We live in a world where like crime or like the cross-border connections in our world are so strong that it takes a collaborative approach to hold the powerful to account. So yes, I can give examples of people in the field and initiatives that are popping up, and my individual perception is this is a growing field, but my main answer is really this is what we need in a networked society. So like, more of it.
Yeah, agree. We have one more question from Sylvie Kajan. Sylvie asks, what about yet unsolved controversial border security issues while investigating, for instance, about the border people between Artsakhat Republic and the opposite occupied territory militants?
Thanks so much for that question. Practicing what I try to preach, I don't have the answer to this exactly. So my approach would be that I talk to local journalists on both sides of the border, try to get a better understanding. When the question is like, it's very, and I would think like Israel and Palestinian territories, it's like a similar issue where like there's political legislations that journalists from different countries must not meet in person, where this poses a huge challenge. So I think in these contacts, again, a collaborative team with people with different perspectives can be really helpful. And I've known, for example, some collaborations where then a third person could kind of like I'm more in the Middle East, so like I kind of know more like Israel and Palestinian territories. So like a third person can then like kind of gather the information from both sides and kind of see, okay, how can this fit and how can this improve our understanding? So whenever people cannot collaborate directly, maybe there's also like a third party and a fourth party who can help make these connections. Maybe the question also, or like why I cannot give this one answer is that my understanding from border conflicts is also that there is more than one story, that there is not a single answer. So I think like forming teams is also a way of providing more angles to a conflict and eventually like leading to a more accurate picture and more multifaceted picture of what's going on. I hope this answered your question. I hope this was going into that direction.
We have time for one more question. This comes from Andy. Andy asks if there are platforms where you can pitch ideas for collaborations and assemble a team around a topic.
Are there platforms? Well, there's a few. I think the European Journalism Center has just launched its collective. Hostwriter is also another example. I know also of like other like topic-driven networks in the solution journalism space, or like I'm a member of the diversity, equity, and inclusion space. There's Slack channels, etc. There's platform. I think there's something like this need to collaborate, to exchange thoughts, and to connect. There are a couple, and I think this is again like in the case of Hostwriter, for example, it wouldn't be that you pitch, oh, I want to do exactly the story and who's in. I think, of course, we always have to this is always finding this balance. Like we are in a competitive field. Of course, we want to make sure that we don't pitch a story and then someone else takes it. And, like we need to allow ourselves to build trust. So I think what I love about the platforms and why I think they are so useful is that you can start a conversation, build trust, like see mutual connections, kind of take some time to build up, and then just give it a try. And I have to say this, even though like platforms are like the commercial platforms are becoming much bigger players in the field, also providing funding, etc. Like Google, Facebook, etc. They've become key stakeholders also in journalism. But in the case of collaboration platform, I just really think it's very good to have these open source platforms like that come from within the field, because of course like there's no commercial business model, and like information is not being sold out or like shared with third parties. So I think it's good that in the field we have these different platforms. So there's a couple. Check out Hostwriter, check out the one from EJC, and let's learn from each other.
Yeah, I mean, we're putting now the links in the live chat, so they can, check Hostwriter and also, the European collective, the Journalism Collective. Thank you so much, Tabea, for your talk, for answering these questions, and for being here today. Thank you.
Thanks so much. Big honor, and I'm happy to follow the rest of the conference day.
Amazing, yeah.
Yes, thanks again for Tabea reminding us that the future of journalism and freelance journalism is not only collaborative, but very importantly, that it's also inclusive.
Labdien, buenos días, buenos días.
Hi, hello.
This is the European Journalism Center.
Since 1992,
we've been helping journalists all over Europe.
Now we ask for your support.
Join the European Journalism Collective.
And with a small donation, you can help us remain independent and sustainable.
So we can continue supporting journalists just like you.
And do even more.
And do even more. And do even more.